okay, aren't we? Yeah, that's good. I'm a parent governor at the school. I have 3 children at the school. I am an accountant, and I thought as a parent governor I would be able to get behind the scenes. I volunteered to be part of the Head Teachers Performance Review Committee. I think we need to make sure as governors that we've done our homework. We understand fully what kind of projects the school has been involved in. Obviously this is about the head teacher, and as with any organisation, I think we're all nervous when it comes as individuals to a performance management review.
Bob Drew has been head teacher at Geary's infant school for 10 years. It doesn't make performance review by the governors any easier.
Going into a performance review is never guaranteed you're going to have a nice, easy ride. I'm apprehensive before them. I usually go into a review session not quite knowing exactly how people are going to take it, whether they are going to accept the evidence that's been presented. However, they do focus your mind. And ultimately, my pay is determined by the performance review. And if I'm not successfully meeting my targets, I don't get a pay rise.
Hot-footing it to the school is Peter Brooks, the school improvement partner and a head himself. He'll assist the governors with their review, a job previously done by a one-off external advisor.
The government quite sensibly thought that that role where an occasional visitor came into the school would be better done by somebody who was getting to know the school extremely well. So I've already had some visits with Bob in terms of attainment and progress. So I have a fair understanding of where the school is and its levels of achievement. Very often governors have been involved in schools for a very long time, and it's a bit woods from trees. They see the school's happy, the children are happy, but they might not be in a professional position to be able to challenge the head on, for instance, targets related to pupil improvement. So I'm there for advice, guidance, and making sure that their role is effectively carried out.
I think we as governors expect the SIP to be there to be able to guide us. An external advisor will probably come along and maybe a one-off visit. A SIP tends to visit the school more often and is more involved, so has a better understanding of the school. And I think SIPs act as critical friends, rather like we do. It's his experience as a professional that will help us review Bob's performance during the year.
The whole process of the performance review will start with myself doing a reflection on my previous targets and generally how the year has gone. And that leads you into thinking about targets for the following year.
I thought your evaluation was evaluative instead of descriptive, which is quite useful in terms of education, that you did look very carefully at your targets for last year, and that the evidence you have produced looks as if it backs up the kind of judgments I've been making, which are in most cases, your targets were clearly met. I was quite amazed when I looked at the profile for the school, that you do have this really huge mix of cultures and backgrounds, and that your standards, though, in terms of attainment at end of key stage are very high.
There is an indication that our standards are certainly maintained, if not developed, because of the changing profile in the school, an increased number of children who are bilingual and non-English speaking. We predict that our scores will steadily drop unless we have timely intervention and our programme is successful.
Can we just try one thing then? Okay.
One of Bob's key targets has been improving speaking and listening in Key Stage 1 through role play.
Yeah, this is a year 1 class, so what the children actually chose to do it as a music centre, as most of the projects are self-initiated by the children. What's interesting is how small the space it is.
It is, it's tiny.
And that was the biggest problem that the teachers said when we were trying to encourage. Why weren't there role play areas in year 1 and year 2?
Yes.
And the majority of the teachers were saying, I haven't got enough space. And it will interfere with the learning that they're doing in the classroom. So you're saying, no, this is enhancing your learning, and all you need is a corner.
Give me £5. No, sir, £2. How much is it?
And you know it's working well when you listen to the conversations and
Exactly.
you can hear the quality of the language that the children are using and how well they're cooperating, how interested they are.
They are.
Look at your baby duck. Can we buy, can we buy this little sticker? Yeah.
This development in speaking and listening is one of the targets Bob will be quizzed on.
Your governors, obviously, from you reporting to them, are fully aware of this development, aren't they?
Yeah.
So when I talk to them later, they will be able to reflect on...
They actually see this and are fully aware, and our parent governors, because they get feedback all the time.
Absolutely.
Their children tell them what they're doing.
Absolutely. And one of the governors I'm meeting this afternoon is a parent governor, isn't
Yes,
she?
yeah.
Which is extremely useful.
My relationship with the school improvement partner is very important. I think it's enhanced by Peter being a head teacher, although not all school improvement partners are head teachers or serving head teachers, but Peter is, and I particularly like that. It's someone who's doing the same job as me and knows all of the pressure points on that one.
There could easily be an objectivity issue in terms of relationships, if you like, and professional relationships. After all, we are colleagues of the same profession, and therefore it could easily be that our talk, for instance, to the governing body could be one where I understand what Bob's talking about, Bob understands what I'm talking about, and we bolt on the governing body. There's a barrier against that. I could be saying to the governing body, because I'm extremely friendly with this head teacher, everything in the garden is wonderful. Ofsted could arrive 2 days' notice and the governing body would have a shock. So there's an accountability to me. The other thing about it is that I'm only allowed to be attached to any school for 3 years. It could very easily be that you'd just get used to each other if it was much longer than that. My role in the meeting is actually just to brackets the buzzword facilitate. It is your discussion with your head teacher. It's not my discussion with him. So I will take notes, I'll be here for advice. At the end of the whole process, I'll prepare the performance management statement, we'll send it to you. You can then respond and say yes or no, or add any things that need changing from it. And then that will become Bob's targets for the next year.
A group of us were invited to undertake the head teacher performance review. There's training given by the borough. We've been able to have visits to the school, we've been able to talk to staff. So we've had a prior foundation of knowledge about Mr. Drew as a head teacher, but in the meeting itself, of course, we're trying to bring those views into play.
So if we look back at our agenda, we need to look at Bob's objectives for 2005-2006. Bob, can you just talk us through the creativity project?
We've picked on speaking and listening as a key skill, something that will unlock everything else. Because without it, you're not going to be able to make an enormous amount of achievement in most of the other areas. So we wanted to introduce more formally planned activities in class that would address that. And I've appointed a project leader, that's a teacher within the school who volunteered to, she did, honest. Volunteer, I didn't tell her to do it, who had an interest in developing that, and we looked at best practice, we've done research. Some teachers ran with it very well, and the project leader was giving feedback to me saying, you know, this is going so far and we're not actually getting it all. But then we changed our inset programme collaboratively, and we created a resource bank.
It was good being able to speak to Bob at some length. We can see Bob introducing intervention strategies to ensure that the attainment level of the pupils is maintained and his targets are met.
We have joined a network of other schools also interested in developing creative teaching and learning methods, and connected up with several other schools who are doing exactly the same thing.
You talk about the project leader, and you said despite relatively little support from other schools within the network. Does that mean that your role in the project was far greater than you anticipated?
It was. We were hoping that the project leaders in the other schools would contribute a lot more to action research. We know that it was going on, but the sharing wasn't anywhere near as rich as we'd hoped it to be. So we were not exactly working on our own, but we had to rely on our own wit and ingenuity a lot more than we've experienced in other networking activities. This is a risk. It's not guaranteed to work. We took a big gamble on this one. We could have fallen flat on our face. In fact, when we were at December, there was no evidence this was working, and only reception and nursery were doing this one systematically, and we were thinking, oh dear, what have I done? And the networking wasn't as effective as we were hoping it would be. Might have made a mistake here, and right, what are we going to do about it?
Just ask you as a SIP, Peter, to give us your evaluation of the progress made with the project.
Looking at these scores you've got there in your evaluation, it's clearly been a really positive step and a positive contribution. It's good to be in a school that takes risks, isn't it? That's a strength, isn't it? And I mean, as governors, I think you supporting that kind of risks is something that can't be overstated as well. I think that's a very brave thing that you're doing in supporting your head teacher in this area.
Just ask a question of Peter about your report, because you say at the end that the target that was set was a particular figure, and then the actual is given, but there is a 4% discrepancy, and to my mind it looks as though the target has not been achieved, but you say it has been achieved. So could you explain? I
think it's my error. When I discussed this with Bob, he works on a plus or minus 4%.
I see.
So in fact it is met, and I should have added it in there, and I will add it in the final report to you.
Right, thank you very much.
When Jackie asked if the attainment was in line with the actual results, had we actually met the target or not, and she pointed out that it was 4% lower, that was the moment I thought, that's my pay rise gone, because no, it wasn't. It hadn't met the target, but it was in line, and that's the very important part that Peter played in that meeting, because he understands the context in which data is interpreted.
I think the fact that the SIP is an outsider, we know that he's not coming with any particular agenda and can be truly objective. And one would hope that because they're appointed by the local authority, they're fair, professional and so on. So I think I had great confidence in him.
So if we set this as an objective, what will be our success criteria then?
It will be in line with the school target that we're going to be setting. A percentage point for children. To be in higher in number, that would be 85% in year 2.
It's another issue where Bob's targets and the targets you're agreeing with him are actually impacting on the specific needs of this school. Very positive.
So happy with the objectives then? We've set the objectives.
From my experience going into a number of schools, heads are very different. They're very unique. They do things in a very different way. What we're after is whatever they're doing, it's a bit like Bob talking about his creativity here. Performance management is linked to unpicking, if you like, elements of his vision, so that the performance, the attainment of pupils is maintained at a very high level. If it isn't, then we're selling children short.
Really, Bob, I just want to say on behalf of the governing body, thank you for the hard work that you've done in the school, and well done for achieving your objectives.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you.
Was that a bit silly?